Well, India has slammed the destruction of the historic residence of Bangladesh founder Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and said that the act of vandalism should be strongly condemned. Rahman's residence in Dhaka was destroyed by some protesters on Wednesday. On the other hand, India's Minister of State for External Affairs, Kirtiwardhan Singh, has in fact said in a written response to a question in Rajya Sabha that India is yet to respond to Bangladesh's extradition request for former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And my colleague Mohammad Ghazali joins us to get us more on this. Ghazali, what we have witnessed is a breakdown of relationship between India and Bangladesh since the Sheikh Hasina government was toppled. And now with the demand of her extradition intensifying, where do we see this relationship going?
See, you would have seen in the last few months, many a times it has happened that Bangladesh government or the foreign ministry there has summoned our Indian High Commissioner over there. Even yesterday, the Bangladesh Foreign Affairs Ministry summoned our Indian acting Deputy High Commissioner, say the Deputy Convoy there, and registered its protest, saying that perhaps this entire vandalism is the outcome of Sheikh Hasina's speech, that her speech was provocative, that led people to go there and vandalize the house of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, one of the key architects of Bangladesh's freedom movement. And this is something Mr. Yunus has time and again alleged or accused India of perpetrating violence there or giving shelter to Sheikh Hasina, while India has always said that it has nothing to do with what is happening even before 5th of August and what happened after 5th of August. Before 5th of August, we saw how the students-led protest movement led to the ouster of Sheikh Hasina from Bangladesh. And even after that, the attack on minorities, the anti-India rhetoric on the rise in the streets of Dhaka was something India had nothing to do with it. But it was expected that Mr. Yunus, after forming an interim government there, will control the situation. But in the last few months, despite registering a lot of protests from India's side to ensure the safety of minorities, it has done nothing for it, and it has always accused India and the media over here to whip up the rhetoric against Bangladesh. But what we are seeing now is that out of nowhere, these protesters gathered near the house of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and it is something the house was visited by our ex-president, Mr. Ramnath Kovind, in 2022. We also saw that there was a library there, and everything has been looted there, vandalized there. Houses around Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's house was also demolished. And yesterday, for the first time perhaps on record, the Indian government also said that we did receive the extradition request from Bangladesh, but we have not sort of sent out any response to that. And in External Affairs Ministry's statement clearly states that we condemn the violence over there, and any freedom-loving person would know that what was the contribution of Mr. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman for creating the present Bangladesh, the state of Bangladesh, and yet Mr. Yunus continues to be here.
All right, Mohammad Ghazali, thank you very much for getting us all the latest. And US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order sanctioning the International Criminal Court, accusing it of illegitimate and baseless actions targeting America and our close ally Israel, is what they have said. The measure measures financial and visa restrictions on individuals and their families who assist in the ICC investigations of American citizens or their allies. Now, Trump signed the measure as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was visiting Washington. And the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Thursday said it was absurd to charge fees to the United States military for using the Panama Canal. His comments come after Panamanian President on Thursday denied the US State Department's claim that his country had reached a deal allowing US warships to transit the Panama Canal for free. Now, Molino said he had told US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth on Wednesday that he could neither set the fees to transit the canal nor exempt anyone from them, and that he was surprised by the United States Department's statement suggesting otherwise late Wednesday.
I'm not confused about Panama. We had conversations. I felt there were strong first steps. We have expectations we made clear in those conversations. I respect very much that Panama has a process. They're a democratically elected government. They have rules, they have laws. They're going to follow their process, but our expectations remain the same. In particular on that, I would just say that the United States has a treaty obligation to protect the Panama Canal if it comes under attack. That treaty obligation would have to be enforced by the armed forces of the United States, particularly the U.S. Navy. I find it absurd that we would have to pay fees to transit a zone that we are obligated to protect in a time of conflict.
Meanwhile, China has criticized the United States, India and other countries for banning DeepSeek, a Chinese AI chatbot, claiming that these actions amount to the politicization of trade. However, these countries have raised concerns over DeepSeek's data privacy and security practices, citing potential risks of data leakage to the Chinese government. And to understand this better, I'm currently joined by Mishi Chaudhry. Mishi Chaudhry, what specific data privacy and security concerns led to these countries like the United States and India in order to ban DeepSeek? And the big question is, what are the dangers of DeepSeek that so many countries have decided to ban it?
So, as you said, that this week, South Korea and Australia also joined the ranks of various countries, including the United States agency like NASA and Navy, who have prohibited any usage of DeepSeek on mobile devices of government officials. What has happened is that most of these governments fear that the data collected by Chinese platforms such as DeepSeek will be used for espionage, influence operations, or surveillance. Whether that's happening in practice or not is debatable, but just the mere possibility is enough for them to raise security concerns, because there are certain laws, like the National Intelligence Law in China, that theoretically allow the Chinese state to access corporate data. Now, that is why these Chinese platforms are being treated differently. That does not mean that Western companies, whether it is Meta, which has Llama, or Google with Gemini, or OpenAI, they don't collect data. Everybody exploits data to some extent. They use it to target us, as you know, for targeted advertising, for algorithmic refinement, the algorithm which feeds you the videos you watch or whatever is on your screens, and AI training also. In fact, they themselves also have been investigated for privacy breaches, but they continue to operate because at least it's assumed that they can be controlled through regulation. So like when ChatGPT was released in 2023, Italian Data Protection Authority banned it for some time and investigations started. But after that, it was allowed because they engaged, they gave the right answers. Once there was satisfaction about the responses received, then they continued to operate in these jurisdictions. That same thing does not happen with China. But one interesting thing to note also is that China blocks access to all Western tech companies, including Facebook and even ChatGPT for all users in its own country. So it's clearly hypocrisy on all sides, as one would say, whether when the blustering statements come from the Chinese.
Well, absolutely. And Mishi Chaudhry, the big question that remains is how can countries balance the benefits of AI technology with concerns over data security and national sovereignty? Well, thank you very much for speaking with NDTV and sharing your views on this.
Thank you.
And Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and his US counterpart, Pete Hegseth, had a phone conversation to discuss strengthening India-US defense ties. This was their first call since Hegseth took office. And it comes just before Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Washington. The two ministers, they agreed to work on a 10-year comprehensive framework to bolster their defense partnership, focusing on areas like intelligence, logistics, operational and industrial engagement. They also, in fact, discussed expanding cooperation in advanced technology, defense industrial supply chains, interoperability, logistics, information sharing and joint military exercises. In fact, Rajnath Singh described the conversation as excellent and also posted on his social media that they explored ways to deepen the India-US bilateral defense relationship. And Donald Trump has stated that no US troops will be needed in Gaza as Israel will turn over the territory after the war. This comes as part of Trump's plan to take over Gaza, which has been met with support from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, Trump's plan involves forcing the 2 million residents of Gaza into neighboring countries and developing the area into what he called a Riviera of the Middle East. However, this entire proposal, it has also been criticized by many, including the Secretary General of the United Nations, who labeled it as ethnic cleansing. Now, despite the backlash, Donald Trump has doubled down on his plan, with the top U.S. officials attempting to soften his stance. The situation remains contentious, with concerns over the potential consequences of Trump's proposed actions. All right, I'm currently joined by James Bowden, an Arab Middle East expert, joining us right now. Thank you very much for speaking with NDTV. First of all, I want to understand the legality and the ethics around this entire statement that Donald Trump has made and his proposal. Is Trump's plan to forcibly relocate 2 million Gaza residents to the neighboring countries a viable solution? And does it comply with the international humanitarian law there?
Well, it's just so nakedly absurd that I was rendered speechless for quite a lot of time when I heard about this announcement. I mean, it's very disconnected from history. It's disconnected from the reality of the region. And I don't think that it would be in any way practical to be carried out. Yes, there are a lot of internal complications, and it would amount to removing people from their native land. But even further, I think one of the greatest concerns and one of the greatest problems is really getting anybody to accept them. One of the greatest secrets that the Middle East doesn't want to talk about is that no one wants to have a Palestinian population in their countries. They have resisted this for a long time, not just Jordan, not just Egypt, but also places like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. And we have seen problems when Palestinians have gone to Jordan and when they have gone to places like Lebanon. And a lot of nations realize that they would have this problem on their hand, and they don't want to take that. So again, just not even worrying about the ethics or the immorality of it, it's just beyond capability of carrying out.
And considering, and this is a hypothetical situation, imagine if this plan does go through. What are the feasibility and the logistics that we need to look out for? How would Trump's administration, in fact, plan to execute this large-scale relocation of the people, and what would be the economic, social, and humanitarian implications of this?
Again, I'm not really sure, because you would have to gather in a large number of nations who would be willing to transport these people into their countries. Where they would depart from is not clear. They would not be allowed to be brought in through Israel, and likely Egypt and Jordan would not let them exit through their countries. And you'd have to find countries willing to take them in. And many European countries took in millions of Syrians in 2015, and they have been trying to deal with relocating them back to the Middle East. And that's been a difficult process, in that way. So the economics of it, the expenditure, trying to get all of the airplanes, get all of the people there, it would just be a nightmare. You'd be spending almost...
Absolutely. Yeah. James Bowden, thank you very much for speaking with NDTV and contextualizing all of this and giving us your views.
Certainly. Thank you very much.
And a U.S. military contracted plane crashed in a rice field in the southern Philippines on Thursday, killing all 4 people on board, the U.S. Embassy and the Philippine officials have said. Now, 1 American service member and 3 defense contractors, they were killed in this particular crash. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines confirmed the crash of a light plane in Maguindanao del Sur province. Welcome back. A federal judge has blocked President Donald Trump's plan to push out federal employees by offering them financial incentives. Now, this decision comes hours before the midnight deadline for workers to apply for the program. A U.S. district judge in Boston sided with the several labor unions that had requested a temporary restraining order against the plan orchestrated by Trump advisor Elon Musk. Trump is trying to downsize and reshape the federal workforce. The judge didn't express an opinion on the legality of the program, but scheduled a hearing for Monday and directed administration officials to extend the deadline to apply for the program until after the hearing. And President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Wednesday to ban transgender athletes from competing in girls' and women's sport. At the signing ceremony, surrounded by girls, lawmakers, and female athletes, President Trump said that with this executive order, the war on women's sport is over. This is his latest step against transgenders since coming to power. And amid the rising Trump threats, Panama has withdrawn from China's BRI. Panama has quit BRI after Trump pushes to retake the Panama Canal. Panama has in fact denied that US's claims over preferential canal passages there. And the Bank of England halved its growth projection for the British economy this year as it cut its main interest rate Thursday for the third time in 6 months. In a statement, the bank's 9-member Monetary Policy Committee lowered its main interest rate by 0.25 percentage point to 4.50%, taking it to its lowest level since mid-2023. That decision was widely expected in financial markets. What wasn't expected was the scale of the growth downgrade in the bank's accompanying economic forecasts. The bank now predicts that the British economy will only grow by 0.75% this year, down from its previous forecast of 1.5% just 3 months ago. That's all we have for you. Keep watching NDTV.